Well, dare I use the cliche, grateful, blessed. It's more than that. It's an ability to kind of tap into something that is still relevant, that the one thing that will never change is our emotions. Our heart never changes. It doesn't. It's either broken, it's moved, or you feel nothing, but the heart controls it. So if you can write a story, is what I'm saying, that touches the heart, then your audience will never abandon you. And I think that's what's missing in so-called action films. I detest the term action films because Rambo's not an action movie. I admit maybe the second one was, but the fourth one was a drama. And this one is a full-on drama that leads to, the, like I said, this kind of Shakespearean finale right out of classic literature in the sense that it's just been building. And again, I don't put myself here as Robert Louis Stevenson, Edgar Allan Poe, but what I mean in really good literature, you've taken these characters on a journey, and the culmination, you know, is going to be seismic. It's going to be volcanic. It's just going to be a classical finale.
Roll sound. And background, and action Rambo.
I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller. Acting is my least preferred joys, if you want to call it that, because it's what the audience doesn't realize. For example, I worked about 14 hours yesterday, but I actually worked maybe 11 minutes. The rest was literally moving equipment. But as a storyteller, as a director, as some other functioning entity, you're engaged. And as a young man, I thought it was nice because it's very, you know, self-grandizing. He goes, look at me, I'm in movies. But as I see the light at the end of the tunnel, I'd rather pass on what knowledge I have on to other hungry filmmakers and say, carry on. This is what worked for me. This is what hasn't. And please just carry on this tradition because I don't want this genre to die because right now it's on one leg and it shouldn't be. In the 70s, that's all there was. And then, unfortunately, technology came in and characters that had no backstories. They're just there in brightly colored outfits, doing extraordinary things. And you know, but what happens when they take the uniform off, go home, and have to deal with the wife and kids? That's what interests me. But you don't see that, you know what I mean? So this is what, hopefully, we can keep the genre alive. But it's not easy. Not a lot of people want to do it. It takes a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice. There was a thing of Australian movie about horsemen. It was unbelievable. Back, 15 years ago, and these Australian, I mean, literally riding straight down cliffs, and they followed this film. It was unbelievable. But they were half a mile away.
Well, I'm of the first generation Rambo fans. You know, I grew up with it. I was a fan before I ever even imagined of being in this business. So to actually be on a Rambo set and be with Sly, it's one of those things I can cross off my bucket list.
There was always that temptation that bigger is better, but I found that out in Rocky Balboa, that when you start to downsize and get back to what made it good in the first place.
It's good.
Cut it.
And bones.
Last one was great.
Very good. Last one was great, yeah.
But in this one, Rambo speaks a lot more. He's, like I said, part of a family, whereas he used to be isolated. So you get to really understand how he thinks, how he ticks, and it's quite different, yet as emotional as the first one.
What struck me more was just the conversations of how life integrates into the art. I mean, you know, understanding what he believes in as a human being, what I believe in as a human being. How would a person react to this situation? How does Rambo react to the situation? But how do we as human beings, and seeing all the possible perspectives. So it was gratifying that it was very broad. You know, we were able to talk about many things, not just about how Rambo sees it, but also why Rambo sees it this way. You know, and a lot of Rambo is Sly.
Adrian is he did Get the Gringo, which Sly and I liked and we watched. You know, he's done a lot of Narcos episodes, which is really gives the Mexican flavor. Adrian's lived in Mexico for almost 20 years now, so he knows the human trafficking world very well. He's very familiar with it. You know, there's a lot of documentaries that when I first met him, he already knew about. He already had an idea in his head what he wanted to do. You know, he already had pretty extensive knowledge of what goes on, a lot more than we did. I mean, I actually learned from Adrian about this story, you know, deeper than, you know, just from what you read on the internet or newspapers, because you do hear about it, and you do hear about human trafficking, but you don't really pay attention to it until someone really focuses on it and educates you on it, and Adrian did that with me.
Yeah, but see, you can tell it's not her, see what I mean? That's why it's difficult. Are you going to use her?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Just lining up to see that we get the shot. Absolutely.
I mean, it seems to me if I see a piece of her features like her mouth, it's much more threatening than.
See, the ideal shot is the one here, the second shot, because it's coming in the frame. You know what I mean? It's more like that is what I'm looking for.
And our thought was, wow, you know, he might be a very interesting choice for this, because it's not like we're getting a director out of, you know, Sweden or you know, or Russia or whatever it is. Here's a guy who knows this kind of material and can really give us the authentic take on not only this world but the characters in the world, and he has been very demanding that way. He goes, I need this to be authentic. In fact, I know everybody on this speaks Spanish, and we even have some Mexicans in the film. We need even dialogue coach to make sure that the lingo is correct, that this really is that world that we're talking about. And having him has been, you know, a real blessing, because everything in the film, particularly the Mexican aspect of it, he can immediately look and go, no, that isn't. Okay, that is good, and that is good there. And yes, we can make Tenerife work, because I'm walking the streets and I see Mexico. All we have to do is some dressing, and we're great here. We can make this film here. So he brings that kind of visual and understanding of what the film should be, and on top of that, he's also very good, and he's very sensitive, and he understands the actors and the characters, so he can sit with the actors and really make them come alive as characters, and it's been a very satisfying journey so far with them. I think we're on the right track, and he's on the right track.
Okay, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
So, am I missing anybody here, or?
Sorry? I'm just bringing the girl who is the one who was dragged around.
Okay, no extra. You were gonna.
Yes, I mean I was just giving you the space at the moment. If you want me to start dressing them in,
No.
we can.
Let's bring everybody in. I'll just put them sort of quickly.
Let's start bringing.
Just like I loved Rocky Balboa. That was the hardest film I had to do, because it was 16 years after Rocky V, which didn't do very well. So there was no encouragement. This one I felt, wow, there is one more story to be told. And this is a story that the audience can identify with. This is everyone's worst nightmare. And I read about these tragedies in the newspaper every day, about children being abducted, and what can be worse? So we touch on something that's relatable as opposed to just random warfare.
The cartel it's a big issue in my country, and it's a big issue in the world. But that is a subject that is very out in the public, for a number of years now. And not that this isn't, but the sex trafficking is the second biggest crime business after the drug trade, is the sex trade. So it made more sense in the story that we told that would be the evil that Rambo touches. You have to remember, Rambo always has one foot in reality, and that is this reality, which is I think a little more original than the cartel, if original is the right word.
We're shooting the scene right after I got captured. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, why am I here? We have Hugo coming in, and he is showing all the rest of the girls, this is what happens if you escape. If you escape, this will be you. So I am scared for my life. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I've been kidnapped, essentially. So it's a really intense scene. We just filmed a little bit. We're going to do a little more right now. So when I got this part, I started researching on the sex trafficking thing that's going on in Mexico, and it's going on everywhere. And I didn't realize how bad it is, but I do think this movie is going to be great because it has a really deep message, which is the sex trafficking. It's happening everywhere, and I just learned a lot of really crazy facts. Some women have about 60 men a day. It's crazy because I'm doing this movie, and it's a movie, but the fact that it's actually happening in the real world is heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. I actually cried when I was watching all those documentaries. I couldn't believe that it was real.
In the beginning of the research, when I received the first draft, this one was a discussion that I had with the director because I really wanted to fight as well. If I have kids and I have a daughter, and if someone takes my daughter and someone's killed my daughter, oh my God, I will kill that guy. I will be the one who take the machete and I cut the head of this guy. Of course, as a human being, as a society, we have to believe that our government, they are going to protect us always. But when someone takes the one you love and someone innocent and they kill that person, you are the one who say, I don't need the government. I don't need the society. I forget everything. Put me in a room with that guy. It's just a primitive instinct that we have. And I think that's what happened with Rambo. Rambo, he just believed in himself. He doesn't believe anymore in the government, in society. He just believes in himself, and that's why he does what he does.
And 3, 2, 1, action.
No.
Banana.
I won't say I have a special insight into it. What I can say is I live in a country where this is a big issue, so I might read about it in my daily life more than other people. So I definitely had an understanding of what this meant, of the number of women that were involved in the sex trade, the amount of money it makes. And then obviously, as you get into the movie making process in pre-production, you read more, you do more research, and it only becomes crazier and more devastating when you know the figures, the true numbers, the realities of it. And I think we debated a lot how much to put in there. this is not a documentary, so there was also, the need to make sure the audience is brought in, and they also have a good time while maybe presenting a little bit of a subject that is true. So we decided we shouldn't dive very deep into it, and show it in a way that hopefully it allows the audience to think about what's behind all this rather than seeing it firsthand.
It's in your way. Yeah, just lose it. Completely.
Let's go. No, leave it. Don't take it away. Don't take it away. Well, we're taking a 10-year leap forward. When we saw him, he was coming back from the jungle. He had been basically removed from society, and now it seems as though he wants to be included. So he goes there, and that's when we left him walking up that driveway.
The ranch is home. The ranch is childhood. The ranch is innocence. The ranch is a sign of a better past, and it's a sign of a better present. Because I think for once we find Rambo in a place where he could be okay for the rest of his life. This is where he was born. This is where his parents lived. This is where his parents died and are buried. So I think it's a return to home.
Now, he's been there for 10 years. He's been accepted into a family. There's a young girl there that he looks at as a stepdaughter, and her grandmother, and that's his entire family unit, which he loves. But he never wants to go off the ranch. He can't get past the PTSD that everything outside of his control is just that. And he doesn't want her or anyone to ever leave this place, which is, of course, irrational, but he knows too much about the world.
For the set of Rambo's Ranch, what we needed to find a very specific setting, a very specific location, and we looked in a lot of places. But Rambo is a character, and the ranch itself, the house, the barn, the forge, the tunnels, all those are very Rambo specific. And you can't just go out and search and find all of that in one location or even 2 or 3 locations. So what we did was we approached it from, let's first find the piece of land that will match and will basically say something about Rambo's character and where he is. A sprawling piece of land surrounded by beautiful mountains, a place where he can go and live out the rest of his life in peace.
Well, we're in Arizona in the movie, but we had to sort of recreate Americana in Bulgaria. It was a big question mark how we were going to execute this ranch in Bulgaria or in where we're shooting in the Canary Islands. And the first idea was to look around Bulgaria to see if this was feasible to do it here, but we decided that it probably would be better shooting it in the Canary Islands. We're shooting Mexico sequences there. It got the climate and the landscape that probably would work best for a desert landscape that we would be needing for Arizona, Mexico. And so we looked around there for a few days, sent a scout to take some landscape shots, visited, but decided that wasn't really going to work for many reasons. It's an island. The resources weren't there, and we would just not be able to do it in the time frame that we needed. We created and built this entire ranch, which was just a flat field, in 5 weeks. And so it's interior, exterior. So, what you see really is these are real buildings. They're not just scenery. They have to withstand all the elements, wind and weather and of all sorts. And so we had to really work very fast. We had shifts working around the clock, designing this while we're in the Canary Islands.
In order to make a movie work, you need to, make decisions to be able to make the movie. And to be able to make this movie, we had to do it in Bulgaria. I had never been here, and I was actually very surprised that we found what we found, especially for the ranch. Nobody believes that is Bulgaria when they see it, because it's amazing. You know, they did an amazing job finding that location and building the ranch. The find of this place was amazing, and when we saw it, we said, "Wow, this is it." You know, the way it was laid out, the time of the year, the color of the earth, everything sort of came together. And Franco did an amazing job in that ranch, because it brought that old cowboy look that his father would have put into this place, and that Rambo has continued, because at heart this is who he is. So I think the biggest compliment to Franco and that ranch is that you see Rambo, and he looks and he feels right in place. He doesn't feel an alien to this setting. So I think that's the biggest compliment, you know, you can give. He built a place that looks exactly what it had to look like.
Ready and action.
I know what you feel inside. The nightmares. I know you don't trust people, but you still try to save strangers. Why?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I know. Never do. But you should. You are not in the war anymore. All in your head.
It's so hard to turn it off.
I understand. But you have done a wonderful job here.
It was really quite amazing. The crew here really did prove their mettle to rise to the challenge of doing this and getting the details right, and getting it's not just throwing up some buildings. It's really creating a character and creating a piece of narrative.
Are there horses, which there are, corrals? He's now into you know, the reining aspects of the horses. He's into doing his hand labor, all the stuff that kind of keeps him ticking, and things that give him purpose. So we found this location in Sofia, where a beautiful piece of land where we could build the house and build the barn, and it was a complete build, and build the tunnels, everything, so that we could reflect that as part of his character.
But he's a horse trainer now, and he's fairly successful, and he's come to terms, at peace with himself, except for these momentary lapses of the war.
The other side, which is both literal and physical, are the tunnels, which are under, you know, they are an under earth. So there's this feeling of heaven and hell that I think can be read into it eventually.
And he's built, for therapy reasons, these incredible labyrinth of tunnels underneath the property that go on for, seems like a mile. And they make no sense to anyone but himself. But by the end of the film, you'll see they do serve a purpose.
The space where he spends more time in, where you see all his past paraphernalia, his knives, his weapons, his photos, his music, all that past that he wants, as he says in the movie, keep a lid on. So I think literally the earth is the lid that separates this world down below.
It was so extreme. The idea that on top of the serene landscape with horses grazing and the rolling hills, there is a world underneath of digging, of underground caverns, of a place where he has compulsively etched out a kind of post-traumatic stress disorder therapy of these underground tunnel systems in his farm. And so when he first introduced that story, initially it wasn't tunnels at all. He was drawing the narcos into the farm, but it was going to take place really at the farm, and he was going to strategically take them on in different areas of the farm. And it was never underground like this in the tunnels. It just that idea just kept growing and growing and growing as a concept for him. He really connected with the idea that Rambo had this very traumatic experience in Vietnam, and that he has now, over 10 years of being here, created this tunnel system in his farm.
I think you got to be off that box.
Okay, cool. Is that minimum, Paul? Great. So
No,
we have
just
that.
pan
Great.
down to my eyes.
Yep.
Good. That's beautiful.
And part of it could be very utilitarian, because there are drainage tunnels that you'll find in farms where there's flood areas where you have to actually do a lot of underground digging. And so you'll see in the tunnel systems actual round drainage cylinders, which, if anybody knows about what happens in the infrastructure of certain areas, you'll have these flood basin drainage things. And so I try to incorporate a lot of utilitarian things.
And then, more than the man cave, I think it's this tunnel, which is the path to and from his psyche. You know, his memories, his all that haunts him, all that's inside of him. I think are represented by these tunnels. They move in all directions and no directions. So you tend to them as you tend to your ranch, and keep a lid on it. I think that's a really good phrase. One of the good phrases in the movie is to keep a lid on it, because it has so many ways of showing in this movie.
So as we were designing the layout of the farm on top, we tried to determine what would the functionality of some of these tunnels be underneath. So in terms of these large drainage systems that often are in these floodplains, you would have some of those elements, and I put them in the tunnels. There's wells that are dug for the farm for irrigation and distribution of water, and even some of the electricity is buried underground, so you'll see some electrical poles. So it's not entirely just this madman who is just digging tunnels for therapeutic reasons or some kind of untold, unconscious drive. There is some functionality to it. But he started seeing, oh well, you know what? There's the well by the house. It's very, I can just dig a tunnel, and I can connect it to my basement, right under the house. So why don't I do that? That would be an easy way if it's to get places underneath. And so he's just kept digging and finding different accesses. We have different areas where he'll just pop up, and it's by the windmill or by the water tower or by the well or right under the basement of a house, and so we graphed it out, and it seemed that that's what it would be. And obviously we're not underground, we're on a stage, so none of it really truly connects in any reasonable way. We just designed it so that we could really it could be film friendly, and we could have what we needed. It's so disorienting anyway when you're underground and it's dark, and it's muddy and dirty and what have you. So it was really fun to build that set. It really was.
And all cameras rolling. Hot metal in.
Okay, ready?
And camera set.
Come on, let's
ready
go.
and action.
Rambo is a very loyal character, and he's a very straightforward character in his beliefs and what he thinks. In the other Rambos, he was sort of always put in a situation, or sent into a situation, or forced into a situation that he had to write. This one, I mean, it's more obvious than any. This is the first time it's personal. This is basically his daughter or daughter-like figure in his life that he's never had. So, you know, I think anybody, especially if you're a parent, but I think anybody can relate to the fact that if, you know, anything happened to your kid, it would just trigger, it would pop that lid open, which is what it does. I mean, you know, which is, I think, pinpointed very strongly when he throws away that medication. You know, he just throws that away and he says, I don't want to be there. You know, I take the medication for my PTSD to keep, you know, to keep that lid on. I don't need that right now. On the contrary, I need that lid open, and I need Rambo to come out, that Rambo to come out, the violent Rambo, the vengeful Rambo. So when he throws those pills, it's that final sign of saying, I'm heading into that hell.
Well, you try to think of something that is relatable to the audience. And in Rambo 2, it became a one-man show, basically him showing his prowess. And then the same thing sort of in the third one under the guise of saving your friend. This one, it's truly trying to find an end. Where does the warrior go? He realizes that his job is to protect, and that's the only thing he's good for. But he knows if he's pushed, if something happens that's traumatic, he's going to revert back. And that's the last thing he wants. He just knows that if the only thing that he loves in the world is taken away, then he's going to bring vengeance. He's going to bring suffering. He's going to bring death. And there's nothing they can do about it because he welcomes it himself. It's really kind of a very dramatic piece, very dramatic as opposed to just random action.
You said you did what you thought was right at 17 and left, and nobody stopped you.
I wish they had. I know you want answers. Just wait a little while. Grow up a little bit.
You're going to see a very different side to him because he's never had someone where he had to raise them as his own. And so, you know, that's different. He raised me from day one. Well, not day one, but basically as his own. So it's a different kind of relationship. There's more sentiment in that. I think you're going to see a very emotional side to him.
What's that look like?
A small knife.
No. This is a Damascus steel letter rumper that I made for when you go away to college. You know, I grind these handles down. Beautiful, all white.
Good job. Killed it. Pretty much.
The only thing good in his life that he treasures out of all the horrors of war, really, you know, she's a breath of fresh air. It's the only thing good in his life after experiencing war and the horrors that go with it. So when she goes missing, he goes to his go-to emotion is war. His go-to emotion is anger. It's an easy emotion for him because he's the most comfortable with it. He's most comfortable when he's killing. He's a killing machine. So when she goes missing, that triggers something in him that is the easiest and most comfortable trait in him. And he, you know, when he goes down there, we'll see what happens.
I've always, and I don't apologize for it. There's no more vicious animal on the planet than a human being. And when a certain button is pushed, not for money, but just when your heart is ripped out of your body and you're covered in grief, the vengeance that you will exact is something that is horrifying. And you saw a little of that in the last Rambo. But that was more of a war. this is something that goes even, it's as deep as it gets.
When we were sort of conceiving and trying to understand how this Rambo would work, obviously we have had the issue that, you know, it's a much older Rambo, and how does that play out on screen? You know, he's no longer able to pull 3 horses single-handedly, you know, and drag them through, you know, whatever it is, or go out and single-handedly in an open field kill off 20 people just with a knife. This is now sort of coming full circle for Rambo. You know, in the first one, he wasn't a killer per se. Yes, he had the Vietnam experience, but he was a Rambo who just wanted to be left alone. Just leave me alone. Don't, you know, I'm just walking here, I'm doing my own thing. And in essence, that was the concept for this. It was Rambo is older. He can't take on hand to hand and fist to fist, you know, even 3 guys, let alone, you know, what he could in the earlier films, because he is an older Rambo. He's trying to come to terms with his PTSD.
The ending scene of this whole movie it's one big long action scene. I mean, starts outside, cars blow up, and some people get shot, and I mean, we have a massive wall of fire similar to what we did on Expendables. So we borrowed some of the stuff from that movie.
Our second unit director on Rambo is Vern Nobles, who has done not only, you know, a couple of the Rambos, but has also worked with us on the Expendables and several other action films we have done. And because he's worked with Sly for 25 years, they have an understanding about, you know, what Rambo is. And along with Adrian, they've been able to really design the action sequences that are Rambo action sequences.
Work with Dado, the stunt coordinator, we trying to figure out, you know, the environment that we're going to be in, how we'll shoot it. Then we storyboard it, and everybody looks at the storyboards and figures out. And then we pretty much stay right to storyboards. And I mean, things evolve a little, and the locations things don't quite go right sometimes, but I mean, I think the biggest key is we plan it all out in advance and everybody's on the same page. So if there's stuff that I'm using a stunt double where Sly's not there, then it just fits in seamlessly.
And now there's a difference there because, you know, if you're doing a film like Expendables, the action in that tends to be different than the Rambo action, particularly for this film, because this film is still action full. But what this film has is a more realistic, more gritty action. What we've tried to do with this film in terms of the action is to sort of come full circle to the first Rambo film, First Blood, where you don't see Rambo with, you know, 2 rocket launchers in each hand blowing helicopters out of the sky. This is the Rambo from when we first met him, the Rambo that uses his skills, that uses his environment in order to take out and hunt down the bad guys. He's not the Rambo that comes in with a big bomb and blows everybody out of the sky or off the land. Here is a Rambo who relies on stealth, a Rambo who will go in unnoticed and take care of the business he has to do. That's not to say there isn't gunplay and there aren't explosions, but those are more rooted in reality, rooted going back to the first Rambo with kind of the real cool traps and things that he has set up in order to basically outwit these bad guys who he has gone after and who are coming after him.
He's not just a wild killing machine in this and just takes out hundreds of people, or like in Rambo 4, the God of War at the end of the last movie, he just took out a whole army. I mean, this skilled mercenaries come to get him, and he's smarter about it and just doesn't blatantly go out hand-to-hand combat, really. I mean, it's a little of that, but it's using the tools that he's learned in the Vietnam era and trapping people into scenarios where he can safely kill them without getting hurt himself. But he does get caught up in the end too. And in the middle of the movie, I mean, he gets beat up pretty bad and shows that, you know, the old Rambo would have never gotten hurt that way.
It's, you know, I realize Rambo is not for everyone. It's very, very intense. It's like, you know, 150 proof whiskey. You know, it's not for everyone. You know, that's a little strong. Yeah, it's meant to be. It's not for children. It's meant to really tell a deep, dark, brooding tale that I feel is almost somewhat like Shakespearean intensity, not of course in the quality of the writing, but in the passion and the depth at which the soul is exposed. So I think this has all the potential to be the best one for me.
Cut! And that's a cut, everybody. Cut.
Ruby, get the shot. No, here.
No. Yeah?
Get over here. You can't do it with your telephoto lens.
So I wanted to go back to the first part and then this second piece, okay?
Right here.
Play back to the first part.
Let's do a video.
Okay.
This is what your daddy has for lunch. It's in love. Like the last Rocky, it gets to a point where when you've told the entire odyssey of a man's arc, in which you've lived with this guy, you saw him as a young man, and now you see him as an old man. But by the end of this film, he's sacrificed everything. Is it an open ending? Yes, there's an open ending. I just couldn't see another film being this emotional. It could go on, no question, with a different kind of content. He could go to jail and, you know, fight everyone in prison and do that, which I won't. If you've ever done prison movies, it's a work. You got to stay in the same outfit for 7 months. It's not worth it. Okay? So I think we hit all the buttons, and there's some really beautiful shots in this. There's a kind of bittersweet poetry about it, but the action is supreme and intelligent because it feeds back into everything that has been building since Vietnam.
I think it's when Sylvester told me that this is gonna be called The Last Blood, I was like, whoa, are you sure? And he told me, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
For me, when I read the script, I thought that is very emotional in all sense, especially the last scene. For me, the first time when I read, I cry. I cry because oh my God, this character, it can't die. I don't want him die. Maybe we are not gonna see any other movie about Rambo, but I don't want this guy because he's a hero. But it's very emotional and sad.
This is a character he's brought to life and nurtured for 40 years. So you're not going to change it. We sort of discuss what the scene was, and he basically brought it to life. And the beauty is that he always, as an actor, he always gave you options as a director. Within the Rambo philosophy, he took it 2 or 3 different ways so that you could later explore them in the editing process and say, oh, you know, we'll go with this Rambo for this scene, or this is the way the character is moving. And And so, you know, that was great to have.
You know, over the years, people have taken the journey with Rambo. You know, you'll have an older audience, hopefully that have seen the first one, to a younger audience who will maybe watch the previous movies. But it's like a journey that takes you through different stages and different times in Rambo's life. Each movie, he's hit some kind of political hot point, be it Afghanistan, be it a prisoner of war. So Rambo always has its foot in some kind of political issue or a relevant, you know, topical issue. And this one's no different. So hopefully we'll give the Rambo fans what they want to see. We'll give maybe some of the younger fans what they haven't seen. It's a bit more of a human drama story, this one. You know, it's not pure out and out action. There's a storyline, you know, there's a performance. It's much more weighty and a lot more dialogue in this, but still has a lot of action in it, but it's a slow build to it, which I'm hoping the finale of this movie kind of, you know, pays off the dramatic aspect of the first two acts.
There's such a core audience for these Rambo films. It's such an iconic character, and I mean, it goes back years. And during that time, there has always been a demand for John Rambo. There's something about Rambo that kind of sits in the American psyche and Americans can relate to. And something very patriotic about that character, something about an underdog who has gone through trials and tribulations and has always managed to survive. And I think that character is a character that a lot of people can identify with and feel for. It's not, you know, some kind of comic book character where you don't understand their psyche. Rambo is a man with flaws, a man with sort of a checkered past, with issues having to do with what he's gone through his life, all kind of, you know, wrapped up in a human being, and I think the audience identifies with that. He's not a cookie cutter character. He's somebody who is always kind of changing and evolving throughout the franchise. So for me, we all knew that there would be a demand to see him at least one final time and in a different stage in his life.
I think they've lived with this young man for so long, and now he's an older man. So I would find it impossible not to see how his life finally turns out, where he's going to spend the rest of his days. And it's a fantastic moment at the end of the film that has multiple meanings, and you can decide for yourself. But it is something that you could go on, or at that moment, it's more than satisfactory that you kind of understand where this poor tragic character's life was bound to end up.
I think the humanity in this movie and the way this character has evolved in its humanity, I think is very important. You can see how far his life has gone and how far his past has taken him to this point. So I think there's a journey that you can read hopefully in this film, that, you know, even if you watch the others, it's better to sort of understand where this character has ended up in this part. Loyalty, humanity, and family. I mean, I think this is the first time Rambo deals with family as an issue, and we've never seen the family theme in his lifetime before, and to actually see him in this kind of family, I think it's maybe unexpected, but it's very rewarding.
Well, I'm sure it's not the most original quote, but you only do what you know. I recommend, don't try to go into someone else's backyard and compete with a fellow who That's his genre. He grew up on comic books. This one here grew up on that. Just write about what you know and write about the human condition, heart, energy, and humor. Heart, energy, and humor. If you can have those three components going, I think you'll have a very successful career. If not, at least you try.